From the Green Mountains of central Vermont, this is the Friday News Dump for Saturday, November 23rd, 2013, with your hosts, Greg Crawford and Francis Goodwin. I'm Deborah Goodwin behind the camera. What's new, Tad?
Wall Street set another record this week. The rally that has taken the S&P 500 index nearly 30% higher for the year shows no sign of losing steam as Americans prepare to celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday.
Actually, on Friday, I believe it was, the Dow closed above 16,000 for the first time ever. Oh boy.
That's good for anybody who's got a portfolio. There's been some talk about a correction, but there's a lot of money pouring in, and the dynamic could continue to go up for a while.
Doesn't it seem like it's got to be some kind of stock bubble? I mean, the fundamentals aren't there. They're only the economy is not doing good. The unemployment rate continues to be...
Well, we've had a series of bubbles all the last century, and they've... So yeah, I mean, in a sense, it's a bubble. There's cycles, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And yeah, definitely.
Well, they call it the boom and bust cycle, which not every industrialized country is subject to. It's only because we have exercised so little control over the financial sector that we run into this stuff, because they go, oh boy, bright, shiny, gimme, and go off on a tangent, and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out of everything and we start all over again. So,
well, part of the rationale for starting the Fed and how they talked themselves into that position was to help stabilize the economy and to help manage the natural cycles of the economy, because there had been horrible problems during the 1800s. But we've seen then just sort of a different kind of boom-bust thing, having to do with they want to keep interest rates low.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, speculation like the nonsense with the securitized mortgages and whatnot is what really caused the problems. And Glass-Steagall and a few other laws that have since gone to that great big trash bin in the sky kept that stuff balanced, because it didn't let the commercial banks and the investment banks collude the way they do now. So, the hell with all of them.
It's not even collusion; they're the same, one and the same.
Yeah.
None of the regulators wanted to regulate. The Fed even, they didn't want to regulate anything. The areas that they were supposed to be regulating. So, yeah, hey, money. Supporting this scenario, December. Oh, that's what's the scenario?
Yeah, well, it's a continuation. We interrupted you, and we're very, very sorry.
Yeah, December is historically the strongest time for stocks. Trading volume is likely to be light as U.S. stock markets will be closed Thursday for Thanksgiving and open a half day on Friday.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and foreign ministers of 5 other world powers joined talks today on Iran's contested nuclear program. The two sides are edging towards a breakthrough to ease a dangerous standoff.
The Chinese, Russian, French, British, and German foreign ministers all pulled up their sleeves to try to seal an interim deal under which Iran would curb uranium enrichment in exchange for some relief from sanctions.
Libya's deputy intelligence chief Mustafa Noah was kidnapped Sunday outside a Tripoli airport.
A gunman attacked the offices of the newspaper Liberation and the bank Societe Generale in Paris Monday, 3 days after attacking the offices of news channel BFM TV.
2 suicide bombers targeted the Iranian embassy in the Lebanese capital of Beirut on Tuesday, killing at least 23 people. An al-Qaeda-linked group known as the Abdullah Azzam Brigades claims responsibility for the attacks.
An African Union base in Somalia was stormed by armed attackers Tuesday. 19 people were killed.
The Syrian army captured the town of Qura on Tuesday. Airstrikes around the northern city of Aleppo killed at least 40 people today, most of them civilians. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a pro-opposition monitoring group, says there were at least 6 strikes on the outskirts of Aleppo and nearby towns, with dozens of people wounded.
A Taliban suicide bomber killed 2 Pakistan Army soldiers Wednesday in the North Waziristan tribal district. Pakistani officials claimed Thursday that an American drone strike on an Islamic seminary killed 6 people, including 2 Afghan Taliban leaders and a leader of the Haqqani network.
At least 11 Egyptian army soldiers were reported killed and 37 were injured on Wednesday in a suicide bomb attack in the city of Al-Arish.
A bomb attack detonated Thursday in a vegetable market in northeastern Iraq, killing at least 31 people. 23 people were killed yesterday in bombing and shootings in Iraq. A car bomb and a suicide bomber killed at least 9 people and wounded 54 today in the northern Iraqi town of Tuz Kumado. The attack took place 100 miles north of the capital Baghdad in a region both the central government and the autonomous Iraqi Kurdistan claim is theirs.
British author Doris Lessing, winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2007, died on Sunday at the age of 94.
The United States Tuesday commemorated the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. How's that one start? Was that fourscore
and 7 years ago our forefathers brought forth upon this nation, etc. The United States yesterday commemorated the 50th anniversary of the day when John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas.
You were saying it was nonstop coverage of it. Huh?
Oh, it was top to bottom, wall to wall, every which way. That's all anybody talked about all day long. And there were commemorations all over the place and people recalling where they were. I remember where I was. I was getting on a school bus. I was a junior in Stonington, Connecticut High School, and the bus driver heard it on his radio and immediately burst into tears. So, bad day for everybody, but especially for the Kennedy family.
I was, it was all over the radio too. I was driving around yesterday. Same kind of stuff. But a couple people called in and said, well, where I was, people burst into cheers. Not tears, cheers.
Where,
you know, they lived in Texas or, you know, in the deep South because, you know, they didn't like Kennedy at all.
Wow.
It's pretty low rent, and I don't care whether you dislike him or not.
No,
you know,
I know,
to celebrate, to be cheering when he got his head blown off is pretty
sick.
Pretty
But you know, I mean, you could imagine it in today's political world. You know,
ought to be a matter of course now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was 50 years ago.
I know.
It's interesting.
I know.
Because
it's been glossed. I don't know, glossed over or something that there were people that, you know, really didn't think he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, you know, and that,
yeah.
Anyway.
Sony announced Sunday that they sold 1 million PlayStation 4 units in the first day.
Oh boy. Bombardier Aerospace, a Canadian manufacturer that also makes snowmobiles, signed a letter of intent on Tuesday to sell Iraq's national carrier 5 C-Series jets with options for 11 more.
The number of people displaced by Typhoon Haiyan reached 1.9 million Sunday. Numbers vary between 1,000 and 20,000 for estimates about how many people are missing. Philippine President Aquino encamped in Tacloban Monday to oversee the rescue and relief operations after receiving criticism for his disorganized response early into the tragedy. The World Bank Tuesday offered a $500 million loan to the Philippines. China sent what it termed a peace ark loaded with aid to the Philippines Wednesday after it was criticized for not giving enough aid to help with the recovery from the typhoon. The death toll in the Philippines topped 5,000 yesterday.
Flooding in Vietnam killed at least 28 people last weekend, with 9 more missing and nearly 80,000 displaced.
50 people were killed Sunday after a passenger Boeing 737 crash-landed in the city of Kazan in central Russia.
Several Midwestern states in the United States were placed under multiple tornado watches on Sunday, with multiple tornadoes touching down, causing at least 4 deaths and up to 50 injured in the area. One leveled parts of a suburb of Peoria, Illinois. Washington, Illinois was pretty much wiped off the map.
Well, at least 20 people were killed Monday when an Egyptian train collided with a minibus and other vehicles south of Cairo.
Mounts Merapi and Sinabung erupted in Indonesia on Monday, forcing residents of central Java and North Sumatra to flee.
At least 18 people were killed when Cyclone Cleopatra hit the Italian island of Sardinia Tuesday, causing heavy floods. The Prime Minister of Italy, Enrico Letta, declared a state of emergency.
What's a cyclone?
A cyclone is basically a hurricane, but
in the Mediterranean or something?
I think there are subtle differences. A hurricane is an Atlantic Ocean phenomenon. A typhoon is a Pacific Ocean phenomenon.
Right.
But cyclones have also been, the term has been interchanged with tornadoes as well.
That's what I thought
they
it was.
happen
It
on
refers
land.
to a circular
That's what I
pattern.
thought it was a cyclone.
But they all nasty.
I didn't know they named them Cyclone Cleopatra.
Yeah,
of
and
all.
Typhoon Ralph and,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
kinds of stuff. So
I knew they named typhoons. I knew they, of course, named the hurricanes, but
I'm going to look it up, and we're going to get to the bottom of this.
A shopping mall under construction collapsed Tuesday in the South African town of Tengat, KwaZulu-Natal, with 50 people trapped and at least one person killed.
that's. Sorry, we are not laughing about that news. We're just laughing that he was able to pronounce that place name.
Yeah, can you say it again?
KwaZulu-Natal.
Very good. Oh,
Oh, man. An Aerovac International Learjet 35 crashed Tuesday shortly after takeoff from Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport on its way to Cozumel, Mexico. The crew called a mayday, and the jet crashed during an attempt to return to the airport, possibly due to engine failure, leaving 2 people dead and 2 missing.
At least 48 people were killed and 35 injured on Thursday when a Maximus superstore collapsed in the Latvian capital of Riga. Others are feared trapped in the rubble, and rescue efforts are continuing. It's believed that a garden that had recently been planted on the roof of that building contributed to
Really?
the collapse because
Oh,
the
that makes
reinforcement
sense.
was not strong enough, and it just going down on everybody.
Oh, gross.
Bad news for those folks. I'm sorry to hear it.
Here's another cyclone. Cyclone Helen hit India's Andhra Pradesh state yesterday, killing at least 6 people and knocking out power to thousands of villages.
35 people were killed in an explosion yesterday after a leaking oil pipeline caught fire in the city of Qingdao, China.
At least 2 people are dead from windstorms yesterday in Northern California.
5 workers were injured after a fire and tank explosion yesterday at an Encana Corp natural gas field in western Wyoming. Police said they received multiple calls about a blast about 10:18 a.m. local time at Encana's Antelope 91-29H facility in the Jonah Field near Pinedale, about 230 miles west of Casper.
Belgium Monday ruled itself out as a candidate to host the destruction of Syria's chemical weapons stockpile, saying it would prefer the arsenal to be eradicated close to Syria itself.
Canada? Did you say Canada ruled itself out?
No, it was
Belgium.
Belgium.
Belgium. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because that's such a polite way to say, you ain't sending that shit here.
Yeah, basically the size of it, yeah.
I thought maybe
especially
that's
if they're
Canadian.
already constituted weapons. If they are the component parts, they're easier to deal with because they're only poisonous when they are combined. You take the component parts and destroy them one at a time. You got a lot less risk of some of the stuff escaping and killing everybody in sight.
I got this brilliant idea. Do it there.
Yeah.
Why
You know
not?
what I
Why do you
mean?
have to
Just like,
well, they had to get it out so he couldn't
Yeah,
deploy
well, I
it.
think also they don't have the facilities to be able to contain the stuff as they destroy it that are within the country. They just have the equipment to build it, not to take it apart. So, Indonesia recalled its ambassador to Australia on Monday and will review Australian diplomatic positions in Jakarta following revelations that Australia tapped the phone of the Indonesian president and his wife. Not very nice.
Oh, so it's
but-
not just Obama.
No, it's not just. Everybody does it to everybody. It's just that we got caught and exposed at it, and everybody went, "Oh, horrors! The thought! I'm shocked! I can't believe it." Yeah, bullshit.
well, I think that they're protesting us spying on them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
of course they
so-
were. But everybody does it to everybody.
Oh, sure.
Indonesian protesters gathered outside the Australian embassy in Jakarta Thursday, and protesters burned Australian flags to protest the alleged bugging of the Indonesian president's phone. According to files published in NRC Handelsblad, a Netherlands daily newspaper, the United States has snooped on the Netherlands since 1946.
That's just what you were saying about how everybody does it. It's been going on probably since
Since they
Stone
invented
Age.
bugs,
I was going to say, right. It's old as rocks.
You've read those spy books. I mean,
Hey, man, yeah, I saw I Spy when I was a kid.
yeah.
And
Get
that's
smart.
That's all smart, right.
Ah, the old phone in the shoe trick, eh?
Egypt said today it is expelling Turkey's ambassador. Egyptian authorities accused Ankara of backing organizations bent on undermining the country, in apparent reference to the Muslim Brotherhood of ousted Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi. Turkey, which had forged close ties with Egypt under Morsi, responded by declaring the Egyptian ambassador, currently out of the country, persona non grata.
In other words, don't bother coming back, jerk. Virginia State Senator Craig Deeds was stabbed multiple times Tuesday at his home by his son, Austin Gus Deeds. His son was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the home.
It's a sad story
sad.
behind that, yeah. George Zimmerman was accused Tuesday of felony aggravated assault and other charges for interactions with his girlfriend.
Ugh. I just have nothing to say about that.
It's his current girlfriend, so it's not his former.
Oh, it's not the
It's
one
not his
that
wife, no.
before they
No,
took the restraining order out on
Yeah, I
him?
was confused. I really thought that it was.
He's been getting around some, but
He's
his
got
wife
to-
says he's a ticking time bomb.
He's just got to take it easy.
Don't
Well, if
give him
he
any
had
damn guns.
Been the type to take it easy, Trayvon Martin would still be here today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or the type to learn from his mistakes, perhaps.
There's that too.
And on that note, we're going to take a break, go to Gregory Crawford's weekly rant, and then we'll come right back with more wonderful stories from around the world. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford and Deborah Goodwin behind the camera. See you in a few.
Hi, I'm Greg Crawford with the Friday News Dump, brought to you by World News Trust. This week, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid touched off a big bang when he finally invoked what everyone calls the nuclear option to combat the habitual abuse of the filibuster by Senate Republicans. So now we have to endure listening to sanctimonious pundits from every side mispronounce the word nuclear as nuclear. You would think that adults in positions of responsibility would make an effort to correctly pronounce a word so common in present-day political discourse. Whatever. If you've been living under a rock for the past several years, a filibuster is an arcane Senate rule that allows members of the minority party to sandbag an initiative introduced by the majority party. A senator can obstruct debate of a bill or a nominee with which he or she takes issue by talking incessantly to prevent a vote on the bill or nominee in question, such as a candidate for a federal judgeship. But now, a conservative senator with a bug up his ass doesn't even have to actually hold the floor for hours on end. He can just threaten to hold his breath until he turns purple, and the bill or nominee is considered filibustered. No, I am not kidding. Republicans have, in the eyes of many, abused the filibuster, which does not appear anywhere in the Constitution, by the way, to hold up President Obama's nominations in unprecedented numbers. The qualifications of the nominees are not in question. They just don't like President Obama, so they behave like petulant children. This is not the way responsible adults conduct themselves in any circumstances, and certainly not when we're paying them to make critical decisions regarding affairs of state. And responsible adults do not tell brazen and patently obvious lies to justify their actions. But responsible adults is not a phrase that can be used to describe Republicans. The so-called nuclear option refers to changing a Senate rule by a simple majority of 51 votes, rather than a supermajority of 60 votes. The Senate rule in the Bombardier's crosshairs was the aforementioned filibuster. By changing the rules to allow a filibuster to be overridden by a simple majority, the Democrats can now bring nominations to a floor vote without having to bribe any Republicans with candy. Senate Republicans could have avoided this by being reasonable people and choosing their battles, saving their obstruction for issues of some substance. But reasonable people is not a phrase that can be used to describe Republicans either. But 'twas not ever thus. There was a time when it was possible to hammer out differences between the two parties because they ultimately shared the same goal, to govern fairly. Or at least occasionally fairly, sometimes. All right, fine. On days beginning with the letter Q. But then the pathological selfishness that is the fundamental premise of all conservative thought got a cheerleader in the form of one Elisa Rosenbaum. You would know her better as Ayn Rand, a third-rate novelist who spewed vitriolic contempt for working people and altruism of any sort whatsoever, and praised the ruthless psychopaths that had poisoned free enterprise with the understrained greed of rapacious capitalism, elevating them to a perverted pantheon of self-proclaimed demigods. The disrespect exhibited towards President Obama by Republicans is also unprecedented. There can be no doubt that a fair amount of this malice is racially motivated. But the overall civility of political discourse has deteriorated over the past 30 years, in no small measure as a direct result of the abolition of the fairness doctrine by President Reagan. Okay, here's the deal. In theory, at least, the airwaves belong to the American people. Our elected officials are tasked with the job of overseeing, administering, and protecting such resources on behalf of the American people, in theory. In practice, however, as soon as a Republican gets control of such resources, it's a free-for-all, and his cronies line up at the trough like hogs. Now, the Fairness Doctrine dictated that every radio or TV station that expressed an opinion on any given subject was legally obligated to offer equal time to someone with an opposing viewpoint. The airwaves belonged to all Americans, and everyone had a right to be heard, no matter how loony they might be. But right-wingers loathe the very thought of true democracy, and Captain Jellybean was easily persuaded to throw the Fairness Doctrine in the wood chipper. And while he was at it, he'd get away with restrictions on foreign entities owning American media outlets. And then along came Rupert Murdoch. This Aussie asshole thinks Attila the Hun was a liberal. And lo, he begat Fox News. And it was equal time, schmeequal time. Fox News was his personal mouthpiece for the rebirth of the Third Reich, Murdoch style, and boy howdy, no goddamn liberal pussies were going to get a second of airtime on his news channel. Unless, of course, they were sacrificed as fresh meat for Bill Cut His Mic O'Reilly. And then things went down from there, downhill fast. Any pretense of good manners or even a modicum of civility was considered a weakness to be exploited and bullied into submission. They tried and true technique of shouting down anyone with the temerity to disagree had been employed to great effect by Nazi brown shirts. Teabaggers said, "Hey, that sounds like fun." They also weren't about beating up diminutive female reporters. Nobody had the balls to call them out, so they kept escalating their belligerence until it was so ingrained in nightly newscasts that people became inured to the outrageous trampling of the First Amendment rights of others. Now, these malicious creeps now infest the House of Representatives like cockroaches, and a frightening number have found their way into the Senate. Democracy's fundamental precept of compromise is considered anathema to T-publicans, and weasels like Rand Paul have publicly expressed any doubt that democracy is such a great idea in the first place. After all, says Mr. Paul, democracy gave us slavery. Say what? Sweet mother of Christ, there are actually people who believe this crap. That constipated tortoise from Kentucky, Senator Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, has said that Democrats will regret resorting to the nuclear option come the midterms. But I suspect that the T-publicans' relentless string of psychotic temper tantrums has exposed them as the malicious fools incapable of governing that they really are, and those Americans still capable of rational thought, including many conservatives, have decided that enough is enough, and frothing at the mouth right-wing fanatics will be frog-marched out of Congress and into well-deserved obscurity. At least I sure as hell hope so.
And we're back. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Greg Crawford. Behind the camera, we have Deborah Goodwin. And this is the Friday News Dump for Saturday, November 23rd, 2013. Thanks for joining us.
U.S. Representative Trey Radel pleaded guilty to possession of cocaine on Wednesday. The Florida Republican was arrested on October 29th after he purchased 3.5 grams of cocaine from an undercover drug agent for $250. Radel pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor count of possession of cocaine and was sentenced to 1 year of supervised probation. A few hours after the plea and sentencing, Radel announced that he will be taking a leave of absence from Congress to undergo additional rehabilitation, and adding that I hate cocaine, I just like the smell of it.
Oh, but-um-bum.
A Honduran Vice Minister of Defense said Thursday that Sinaloa cartel boss Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, Mexico's most wanted drug lord, may be hiding in Honduras.
Police arrested 2 suspects on Thursday after 3 women are rescued from a residential address in Lambeth, South London, after 30 years of captivity.
Oh, yeah, I heard this story. What a gross, awful thing. They think that the youngest woman might have been born in captivity.
Wow.
To, you know, the 30-year-old. Well, I'm sure you're.
And one is 57, and another was,
wow,
somewhere in between. But they were seriously indentured servants. And God only knows what else they were doing to them.
A parole board in Alabama Thursday granted posthumous pardons to 3 boys falsely accused of raping a white teenager.
Skeletal remains found buried in the California desert were identified yesterday as 2 young sons from a family that vanished nearly 4 years ago. San Bernardino County Sheriff deputies were dispatched to the desert near Victorville, about 70 miles northeast of Los Angeles, on November 11th after a motorcyclist reported coming across what he thought were human bones. Dental records were used to identify the remains of 40-year-old Joseph McStay and his 43-year-old wife, Summer, who were reported missing from the San Diego area in February of 2010, along with their 2 children. They thought the remaining bones were likely to be of their 2 young sons, and DNA tests proved it. The coroner's office has classified all 4 deaths as homicides.
They were saying they don't want to say how they died or how they think they died.
Why?
Might have been pretty gruesome, who knows.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think they haven't caught him yet. Sounds like. Los Angeles International Airport was partly evacuated and some flights delayed last night after passengers mistook the noise from a car crash outside for gunfire. Officials say that at the same time, an anonymous caller reported an armed man in the terminal. The reports of an armed man and shots fired, while they appear to be false, disrupted flight operations and alarmed passengers at the California airport, one of the world's busiest. A gunman killed a federal security agent and wounded several others in a shooting spree at the airport earlier this month.
A U.S. jury convicted 3 men yesterday in a massive kickback and fraud scheme while implementing a new payroll system for New York City that eventually cost more than $600 million. Mark Mazur, who was accused of playing a central role in the fraud, was found guilty on all 6 counts, including conspiracy to defraud the city, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit bribery. The jury also convicted Dmitry Aronstein, Mazur's uncle, and Gerard Desnaux, a former employee at lead contractor Science Applications International Corporation. The jury also convicted Dmitry Aronstein, Mazur's uncle, and Gerard Desnaux, a former employee at lead contractor Science Applications International Corporation, on charges including conspiracy to commit money laundering. The government accused Mazur and a network of relatives and other co-conspirators of masterminding a fraud that netted more than $40 million.
Wow.
Abdullah Yameen was sworn in as president of the Maldives Sunday following an election victory.
Georgi Margashvili was sworn in as the president of Georgia on Sunday following a win in the October election.
Good work. Voters in Chile went to the polls Sunday for a general election of president, senators, deputies, and regional advisors. The presidential election looked likely to go to a runoff between former President Michelle Bachelet and Evelyn Mathai of the ruling coalition. Actually, I should know the results of that. Sorry, folks, but I may take that out.
Voters in Nepal started voting Tuesday to elect a constituent assembly to draw up a new constitution.
The Venezuelan National Assembly voted Tuesday to hand President Nicolas Maduro decree powers over the economy, with the opposition concerned about a potential crackdown on political opponents.
The Supreme Court of the Philippines Wednesday abolished the Priority Development Assistance Fund, otherwise known as the pork barrel.
Federal Reserve Vice Chair Janet Yellen moved closer Thursday to becoming the first woman to lead the U.S. Central Bank. Senate committee backed her nomination, and the chamber changed its rules to make it easier for nominees to be confirmed.
The Internal Revenue Service audit, already a fearful ordeal, is to get even sharper teeth in January. The IRS will start setting strict deadlines for delivery of information it wants from companies and wealthy people that it is auditing. No such deadlines now exist, so taxpayers can put off IRS requests for documents or personal interviews and drag out an audit for months, sometimes even years.
Oh, that's what I do.
Sure. The new deadlines will apply only to people or companies with more than $10 million in assets.
That's what I was joking about.
Well, I'm safe then.
Oh, well, normal.
I don't have 10 million cents in assets.
Excuse me. The General Synod. The General Synod of the Church of England voted Wednesday in favor of legislation to allow the ordination of women bishops by 2014.
Oh,
That's
hallelujah.
pretty,
That's cool.
interesting, yeah. Because this Pope, like this Francis, Pope Francis. Different,
kind of liberal,
different
too.
religion, folks. Yeah, he's like, no way on ordination of women.
but he's trying to do a little bit of liberalizing.
Yeah, well, I think he's got to take it, baby steps at this point.
I think he's
Yeah.
picking his battles too.
Yeah.
But I understand that he's very firm.
That'd be the smart move, because otherwise they're going to just say, "Hey, wait just a damn minute."
Yeah.
And we're talking already that the Church of England has allowed women to be ordained. So it's just bishops now that they can, so basically they're just letting women into the administrative hierarchy of the Church of England. They're already allowed to be ordained.
They already have gays, don't they?
And they already accept gays too, I think.
I'm not
Actually,
sure.
there's a big schism in
Is
the
there?
Episcopalian churches. There's the conservative Episcopalians, and they split up from the Church of
Over
England, the Bloody Mary Episcopalians.
Of which you were the
which
line you
I
came from.
once was one, and
You still like bloodies.
anyway. So there was a big split over that, over the gay marriage thing. So they recognize and perform gay marriages, I believe. The Church of England.
Gay pastors.
Episcopal, and they allow gay ministers.
Okay, so gay
Well,
ministers.
remember that gay minister friend of
but-
Tom's?
Okay, we have to go there. Come on.
Yeah, we don't have to. Anyway.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch,
They allow gay ministers. I mean, like,
Yes, gay
They admit-
ministers,
they-
and they allow women ministers.
or,
but the Methodists
bishops
don't.
were
They just basically defrocked a guy for marrying his own son or
Yeah,
officiating at his
I
own
heard
son's
that
wedding.
story. That's terrible.
And we haven't heard the last of that one, I don't
I
think.
don't think so either.
Anyway, as I was saying, NASA on Monday successfully launched its MAVEN space probe on a mission to study Mars' atmosphere.
the Japanese Coast Guard says a volcanic eruption has created a new islet in the Bonin Islands south of Japan.
Wow.
Someone's making it rain weird stuff up in here. We've had meteors, comets, satellites falling out of the sky lately, like all the damn time. What's up with that? And early on the morning of November 20th, people in Oregon saw a flaming something or other hurtling out of the heavens. And heavens! For some reason, the U.S. Strategic Command was awfully quick to try and convince everyone that it was most definitely not a man-made object. No, sirree, absolutely not. Okay, then what the hell was it? And don't you dare say swamp gas. An official spokesman, well, actually a local TV weatherman named Bruce Sussman, concluded after very careful analysis of time-lapse pictures taken of the phenomenon that the sun was shining through a jet contrail, just so. Time to get your eyes checked, Brucey, because there ain't no way in hell that's a damn contrail. Contrails aren't black. Far more interesting than what the object was is why everyone was in such an all-fired hurry to convince us of what it wasn't. Something here has a very unpleasant odor. I've been watching jet contrails since the very first jet airliner took to the skies, and the image in the photos online are not those of a contrail. It was smoke. So come on, you guys, what are you hiding, and why?
So what are you saying?
A plane crashed, blew up.
What I think it is something that came out of the sky, that had been in orbit.
That wasn't supposed to be there.
That wasn't supposed to be there. And they don't want to admit that, ooh, that one got by us. So they don't want to say that. So it's a swamp gas, little green men, whatever. It's, it
Well,
isn't.
it could have been a classified satellite. Most of them probably are up there.
Well, there's like
doing re-entry.
13,000 of them in the sky up there, or something like that. But the thing is, if you take a look at these photographs, there's no conceivable way in hell that somebody could mistake that for a jet contrail. That just ain't happening. So, smoke that one.
Sebastian Vettel won an 8th consecutive Formula One race at the 2013 United States Grand Prix in Austin, Texas Sunday, breaking the world record previously held by Michael Schumacher. Jimmy Johnson, this is the auto section, Jimmy Johnson won his 6th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship title Sunday, one title short of the all-time record of 7 held by both Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty.
And this from our Law of Unintended Consequences department. Back in 1971, a Soviet team of scientists set up a drilling platform to search for natural gas in a remote desert of Turkmenistan. Unstable ground beneath the platform caused it to collapse, creating a 230-foot wide crater. Fearing the explosive potential of the escaping methane gas, it was decided that it should be burned off. I can has match, comrade. Duh. They thought the flames would subside in a few days. Guess again.
It's still
42 years later, the crater is still ablaze. Now, a tourist attraction, the burning hole has been dubbed the door to hell. And it certainly looks like it might be. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
In the World Chess Championships, Magnus Carlsen of Norway defeated defending champion Viswanathan Anand of India 6.5, 3.5 in a series played yesterday in Chennai.
He's supposed to be a hunk, the Swedish chess dude.
How-
Like he's in all the Swedish magazines with his shirt off, and he's gorgeous, and you know he's like
A sexy nerd. Isn't that a
huge
contradiction
celebrity,
in terms?
a huge
Does he have a model
celebrity.
wife?
Well, they're Swedish. So
Oh, we're going to get letters on that one, I'm sure. Everyone has heard of Neanderthals. They'd been in Europe for thousands of years before any Homo sapiens sapiens, that's us, were even a gleam in their mother's eyes. They were short and tougher than a boiled owl. An average Neanderthal male was 5 times stronger than the strongest modern man who ever lived, but they were still driven to extinction by our early ancestors. Well, not quite. Anybody of European or Middle Eastern ancestry has at least a little bit, like 2% give or take, of Homo neanderthalensis in their genome. Ew! But it gets better. 30 or 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals shared the Eurasian landmass with a few other descendants of Homo erectus, and they got jiggy with it. One distinct and extinct species that scientists have identified for sure is the Denisovans, named after the cave in Siberia where they were first discovered. And there are traces of mystery men from Asia lurking in the genetic woodpile too. So for those mental defectives obsessed with racial purity, forget about it. That ship has sailed, like 50,000 years ago. So get over yourselves. To close with a chuckle, a prominent white supremacist recently discovered through genetic analysis that he is 17% black. What's that racist thing about a single drop?
yeah, that was great news. That was one of the best stories I've heard in a long time.
I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford. Behind the camera, we have Deborah Goodwin. This has been the Friday News Dump. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.